Hey everyone, Kieran Wilson here from Automated Insights. Thank you all for joining us today. We'll get started. We've got 10 content creation tactics for when the well runs dry. Try to avoid some writer's block. You guys can ask questions via GoToWebinar. There's a question function over there on the GoToWebinar panel. You can also ask them through Twitter and just tag them with the hashtag ContentGen. That's Jen with a G, not to be confused with Jen Lisak, who we have on the call with us today. So thank you. Douglas Carr, we've got on the phone. We also have Jen Lisak. They are both from DK New Media as well as Marketing Tech Blog. Thank you guys for joining us.
Fantastic to be here, and thanks for everybody for joining the webinar.
Yeah. Great.
I wonder if we got some East Coasters out there. Trudged through the 2 feet of snow that was supposed to be 34 feet of snow.
I guess the beauty of webinars is that they can do it from the comfort of their home, assuming they have power. So yeah, we hope everybody that is joining us from the East Coast or who wasn't able to be here is safe and sound.
Definitely.
So just a few quick things we want to run through for the webinar. We're going to lead a Q&A at the end of the presentation. Again, you're welcome to ask questions during the presentation. You can do that through GoToWebinar or on Twitter. I have our a fancy screenshot from a koozie we have, and if anybody would like one, feel free to message me, and I will be happy to send you one out there. But that's at Marketing Robot, and you can tag those again with ContentGen. The webinar is going to be recorded, and we are going to send an email to you all with the deck and the recording after the fact. That should be ready either later today or tomorrow, so you can expect that. So with that, we'll just jump right into it and get started. So as content marketers, it's a big challenge because a lot of us, content isn't our only job. There's a lot of marketing managers here on the phone. I know that. And we have a million balls in the air. So one thing that you do need to do is get into a creative headspace. I know this is something that I struggle with. So what I actually do is set time aside on my calendar just for writing or just for really thinking. I know your coworkers might look at you and think you might be a little crazy or sitting off in a room just kind of staring into space, but it is important. We have a quote here from John Cleese. You guys might know him. He's the man behind Monty Python, but he also gives some really great talks on creativity. He says, we don't know where we get our ideas from. What we do know is that we don't get them from our laptops. And I think, if we wanted to update that to today's world, we don't get them from our smartphones either.
Distractions.
Distractions are they are not few and far between. They are very, very just up in your face all the time. So a few things that you can do is you want to create time and space. Set time aside, have a start and end time. Some people, like to tackle their writing in the morning. Some people like to do it towards the end of the day. Neil Patel of QuickSprout actually just came out with an infographic yesterday, which I can share with y'all later. And that was actually looking at when people are the most creative. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But set time aside, have a start time, and another important thing is have an end time. Try to avoid interruptions and distractions, and don't make excuses. I mean, if you need some, I've got plenty of them, Doug and Jen. I'm sure that you guys do as well.
Well, and honestly, another good tip is keep a little notepad with you at all times, because honestly, some of the best ideas I come up with are when I'm sitting binging watching Netflix, and then I come up with a great idea, and then I'll forget it in the morning. So
absolutely. And you watch shows like that. There was a post that was done where if Don Draper,
oh yeah,
in the age of social media. So things like that I'm always interested in. And when I watch shows, I'm like, could this be something that I could write about? But I'm embarrassed to admit what kind of TV I watch, so I'll stay out from that.
Yeah, if you're watching reality TV, you're probably not going to get anything.
No, I'm just obsessed with Scandal, and it makes me want to write really exclamation pointy blog post.
Which the audience just thinks you're yelling at them.
Yes, exactly.
So exclamation pointy blog post is not one of our tips today.
Yes, no. And no all caps blog posts either. Let's try to avoid those.
No, I don't do those. I just want lots of punctuation.
The CEO of Ignite Social Media once told me when I first started working for him, he said, you get 3 exclamation points in your life. Do you want to use them all in this one email? I said, no.
Nice.
And ever since then, I've been super cognizant of when I use exclamation points.
Agreed.
Wow.
But Doug, you found an interesting fact from LexisNexis that on average, employees spend over 50% of the workdays receiving and managing information rather than using it to do their jobs.
That's my life.
Yeah, and that's the problem that we're running into, especially as you're talking about, taking a long-term look at content strategies and where you're going, and not just what you're going to write today, but what you're going to write next week or next month. It's the reason why you need to slow down, get away, and build a strategy. So it's, if you're just running and running and running all day, it's like playing Space Invaders, and you never actually, get a chance to build a strategy that works. And we'll talk some of those other stats here too.
Yep.
Absolutely. Okay, so with that, we will move on to the second content creation tip. Jen, you want to take this one?
Yep. And now this one can be done individually or with a team, especially if you have a team of writers. It's kind of nice to have cohesion between the group. But this is a brainstorming technique, and this is the part of the process where there's no bad ideas. Let's just get everything out there. So saying yes and this and that and this and that. And it's also an improv technique that comedians use. I wish I could say I was funny, but it's all right. So I'll use it here. But yes and encourages momentum, fluidity, and acceleration. Again, just get everything out there, and then the next stage of the brainstorm, you can cut ideas and hone the ones that work for your brand. Up next is tip number 3.
Oh, we forgot about the kids that are super excited.
I know. See, those are my kids, because,
That's Doug on the left and Jen on the right, by the way.
This is actual footage.
We'll do a selfie later and share it.
Yeah, right. It's just, when someone provides an unfiltered kind of knee-jerk reaction to somebody else's suggestions, we have the opportunity to tap into new ways of thinking. And so that can just gives us the opportunity to take ideas further and further. And that's kind of when you say, hey, that's an awesome idea, which is, 20% of the time, I'd say 80% of the time, we're like, that idea is terrible.
Right.
Yep.
But again, that doesn't go along with what we're saying here.
Yes is an empowering word. So once you're already saying yes in your head, you're going to continue to write it. So
yes, and just build on that.
Good.
Tip 3. This is absolutely so critical. Have monthly and quarterly themes, and this is something that we see with clients that can really drive momentum. A lot of what we talk about with content strategies with clients is depth and momentum. And so depth is, where are your readers at in their interest cycle? Are they just, kind of cruising around getting tips, or are they ready to make a purchase and engage with you? And when you're talking about strategies, one of the things that we've recently done is, we have the blog, of course, and we have a podcast, and we have videos, and we have white papers and infographics that we put out. What we've been doing, especially the last year, is kind of aligning that so that when we're talking about, let's say, pay-per-click marketing, we're talking about it on the blog, and we're talking about it in the podcast, and we might do a video of it. And what we wind up seeing with that is, instead of getting a one-to-one kind of reaction with each one, the combined reaction is actually an accelerator. And so if you can really cohesively talk your strategy and say, you know what, this month we're going to talk about X. So if you're, let's say you're selling to salespeople, it might be about sales leadership and dashboards in one month, but in the next month it might be talking about, spiffs and things like that. And you just want to align all of your conversation to that and answer all those questions. So some of the things that you can do is, base your theme around industry trends, key events. So one of the things for us with the Marketing Tech blog is what's happening next month. So it's January right now. February is coming, Valentine's Day, and so we released an infographic that we found on another email marketing site about planning your Valentine's Day sales and coupons and such.
How to get love from your subscribers.
Yeah. Wow. Jen did a little dance when she did that. So.
Yep.
Product launches, of course. This is so critical. We like to align. What is the PR department doing? And what's the content that we can write that's supporting the PR efforts? What is the product marketing team, doing? Getting that cohesion between all of them, and then of course customers' top challenges. So if it's the end of the year when all your stats kind of spiral downward as people are on holidays and everything else, what can you do to take advantage of that time? And so there's some challenges there too that you want to take care of. A great quote here from the Content Marketing Institute, and this was directly from surveyed marketers. 84% of marketers who said that they were ineffective at content marketing said that they had no documented strategy. And so it's really critical that you kind of take a step back and say, what are the key, and you can build this, in a mind map if you want or whatever, but what are the key strategies that you're going to talk about? So for us with the Marketing Tech blog, it's the different silos of content marketing, social media marketing, email marketing,
infographics.
Yeah, infographics, and so what we do on a monthly basis is we make sure that we have balance to those topics, and we schedule out ideas on each of those topics for every month, and we do research on them too and find additional info.
Well, and the other part of having a quarterly or monthly theme is that once you hone in on, the topic, you have one idea for multiple channels. So you can have an email based on that topic. You can have a blog series based on that topic, an infographic. So it honestly makes your life easier in the end. Absolutely.
There you go. Do we need to make a sound? Bing! Bing! Content creation tip 4. This is perhaps my favorite. So if you guys know anything about me in the past, I wrote corporate blogging for dummies, and I worked for a company named Compendium that worked in the content space quite a while. And the largest struggle that we had was exactly what we're talking about in the webinar today, and that's content creation strategies. A lot of people just had a hard time figuring out what they were going to write about. And I think we wrote some posts out there like, 250 different ideas for your blog and things like that. So, but the best idea that we ever came up with that worked so well was take a question that clients or prospects ask and answer it in the form of a blog post. And one of the sneaky things that we do is go to your sent folder, especially your salespeople's sent folder, anybody in business development, and go look through your sent emails. A lot of times the questions that you're answering on a day-to-day basis to your prospects or your customers are right there in your sent folder, and you just need to dress them out in a much nicer, more informative blog post. But if someone's asking you that question in an email, and they're constantly asking you, well, guess what? There's more and more people searching for those answers online. So answer questions from customers or prospects, from colleagues, from industry leaders, and then, of course, there's forums like LinkedIn and Quora, Reddit, Inbound. There's a ton of different places where people are asking those questions. And most of the time, we try to drive them back to our site and back to our blog for the answers. And there's, of course, an SEO tip on this, and that's that over half of all search queries use 3 words or more. And the source was actually an internal document from Google. And I think this is really telling that even searchers are becoming, in the old days they would use 1 or 2 keywords and see what came up. But now people are writing entire questions into a search engine, query. And so the opportunity for you is to look up what are the questions that people are asking, like,
what is marketing automation?
Yeah, what is marketing automation? What is analytics? What are the different analytics types? And so one of the tools that we use for that is like Word Tracker, where you can actually do a filter and you can type in a keyword and you can say what are the questions that people are asking search engines associated with that. And there's just if you're answering questions, people are going to land on your site, and that's of course a first step in that conversion funnel.
Well, and you can also answer questions that industry leaders have already answered, but answered in your own way.
Yeah.
Because you might not necessarily agree.
Yeah, disagreement is good.
Yep.
And while we're on the topic of SEO, Doug, we have a question from Jessie from Angie's List. And she says, we get most of our SEO value out of evergreen content and are refocusing new content creation to fill gaps. She's interested in also establishing an appropriate flow of non-evergreen content that supports this evergreen content without competing with it. Really interesting question there.
Yeah, it's a careful balance. I mean, evergreen content is and for people that don't know that term, it's basically if I write an article on if it's Angie's List, how to select a kitchen contractor. That's evergreen in the way that it doesn't expire. It doesn't have a time, or date associated with it. But there might be other questions like when to hire a snow removal company.
Yeah.
That's a timely, there's kind of a time period, or there's an event-based one that if there's a race coming up and you want to talk about a race, it's not Angie's List related, but there's an event coming up that you want to talk about that's event driven, that it's going to expire basically. I think there's a careful balance. What we pay attention to with that is we pay attention to like Google Trends and on the topic, and we watch the seasonality of that info. On our evergreen topic, we'll basically build out a really rich conversation of that, and we might even build secondary articles that are more of the non-evergreen related, so maybe it's about a certain product or a certain location or something like that. But we'll still point them back to the parent, hey, if you want to read more information, we did this post that describes the entire process, and that's the evergreen content. And then on the evergreen content, we might do the reverse. We might say, if you have, here's some specific questions. Like we did one for an example just on how to optimize a page. But within that, we had other articles that were how to optimize a YouTube post, how to optimize a blog post, how to optimize a landing page. And what we did was we wrote one central article, and then we cross-connected each of them. And there was some overlap in the content, but each of them had its own distinct title and distinct, topic. And then what it did was it allowed the reader to flow back and forth between the evergreen content and the non-evergreen content. I hope that makes sense.
And on that, I would also say obviously you need articles and blog posts that are not going to be evergreen, but for premium content like infographics and white papers and even webinars, those are the areas where you want, since it's such a high effort, high level content piece, you want to focus your effort in those pieces and making sure those are going to last for 5 years as opposed to 5 months.
Yeah, the other tip there that I think is really useful is we go back and maintain old posts as well.
Yep.
So one example was we have a post called The History of Email Marketing, and the company that did an infographic, they did it about 5 years ago. Well, a lot has happened in the email space, like Gmail adding different tabs and stuff like that have made a big difference, and other deliverability technologies have arrived. Well, what we did was, instead of releasing a new blog post on the history of email that would compete with the old history of email, we just went and updated the older post and then republished it. And so and it didn't hurt anything. Nobody said, well, you published that once before. And what we do by doing that is we have the same URL, so it's already got some, search engine juice, if you will. It's already been shared socially. It's already got some numbers associated with it. Well, now it's just updated, and you wind up hitting your audience again, and they share it all over, and you wind up strengthening that search engine, optimization.
Yeah, that's great. And that actually goes really nicely into the next tip, which is number 5, and do your research.
Yeah, this is big for us. Pretty much with anything and everything we do for our inbound marketing campaigns. We conduct both original research and, find stats that are out there in the industry, but all the way down from blog posts to, long articles to webinars, infographics, white paper. So we always do original research, make sure it's within, we try to get research within the past year and not go any farther than that, because it's just not, in this industry, honestly, anything past 6 months isn't really relevant half the time. So we get research docs together, we find new trends and insights, and then we even look at the numbers and make our own conclusions about what's happening and what's to come. And yeah, also update old resources. It doesn't have to be yours, but you can let someone know if there's a new stat out there or you found something new. But most of my time is spent for research. Most of my time is spent with infographics, and infographics, especially with stats that are backing up your overall conclusion and mission of the infographic, are the ones that are going to get shared more. So, and this is a great stat from Cool Infographics. Infographic posts receive 8 times the shares of traditional posts, producing 4 times engagement. And wow, you can make a drinking game out of how many times I said infographics.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
We like focusing on infographics just because that really is it's that visual display of the research that you're doing. And I would just want to reiterate what Jen said, that there's primary research, which is typically a bit more costly, going out there and hiring a survey company and everything else. But then there's just research, and that's a lot of times we just go out to the internet and we find, like we did with this presentation, what you're seeing, all the stats that we, like this cool infographics stat, that came directly from their research. But it's supporting, of course, what we're trying to teach people here. So statistics are really, really important.
Definitely, yeah, and it's about, adding in value and not just kind of repeating what other people are saying, because I think in the world of content marketing, so many people have bought into it now, and so many people are doing it. It's creating a lot of noise. So you want to make sure that you're putting something out there that's different and that's valuable to your audience.
Yep.
So, which is what we're trying to do with this webinar. And how did we come up with this webinar? We made a list. So that's content creation tactic number 6. Doug sent me a good quote that came from Copyblogger, and says, list posts make a very specific promise of what's in store for the reader. I think that's where a lot of the value is in the titles. They know what they're getting, and people love numbers.
Yep.
So we actually did here at Wordsmith for Marketing, we did a post, and this was actually over the summer, but one of our awesome product developers kind of went through and he scraped information from inbound.org. And so what we found was that list posts account for just over 10% of all the titles in the inbound.org all-time top 1,021 submissions. I'm sure that number has gone up since that. But, we look through that just to see, how many of these titles started with numbers, and we found that a pretty good deal did. And that's not even accounting for numbers that might have been in the middle of a sentence. We didn't count those. Say it was how to make a webinar, 3 ways to engage your audience, wouldn't have been counted. But we also find that list posts are good for evergreen content. We focus more on quality of items as opposed to just the number of things. If you only have 3 tactics to talk about, just talk about 3. Don't try to make a list of 5 just to have a list of 5.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so easy to just digest, because that specific promise is what I like, is that, if I saw the blogging checklist of, what to do every time you write a blog post, what I'm thinking in my head is, what's the list that I use? What are the steps that I go through? And then I jump over to that post and I just compare the two. And I think that's why it's so important, is it's candy, right? It's easy to digest, it's easy to read, it's what you're going to get, and maybe you get a couple of new ideas that are really intriguing. And it's that surface layer. I tend to tell people that's that really high surface layer. You might get a lot of high bounce rates on it, because people are just checking it out and leaving. But so I don't like the sites that literally, when you go there, every single one is 3 ways, 3 tries, 3 this, 3 that. I like that balance of posts. Like, I even think 79% seems a little bit heavy to me, and I wonder what their bounce rates are and whether they have people engaging a little bit deeper there. So I like a combination of them.
Exactly, and we got an interesting question in from Ken. And he says, do stats need to be real or just support your message? Ken, the stats need to be real.
What is it? 79% of statistics are made up.
No, it's from How I Met Your Mother, 83%. Barney always goes with 83%.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think it's important, and Kieran actually did it when I sent over some of the stats that I had found. She came back and said, where did you get those from? And I think it's really critical that you have a reference point for people to pursue. When I see kind of that blank stat sitting out there with no context to it, to understand how it was collected and everything else, I kind of take it with a grain of salt. So I would never. I don't think it's a good idea to make up a stat. I think it's obvious that companies utilize statistics, and bend them in their direction. But they're still powerful from an authority standpoint, and showing some kind of validity to the argument that you're trying to portray.
Definitely, and I think if you're trying to look for something to support your message, do your research and see what's out there and pull together your own. Maybe it's a customer survey, maybe it's an industry survey, but collect stats that way. But certainly don't make them up.
Yep.
So with that, we'll move on to the next content creation tip, which is conduct interviews. So this is another good place to add some authority into the content that you're creating. You have your voice, your audience, your answers. Interview is the intersection. This is a great image that Doug sent earlier, and I think it's spot on in kind of where that fits within the content creation process.
Yep.
Did you want me to talk about it?
Doug, do you feel like talking about it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think interviews are one of those, it's a quick and easy. Surprisingly, we hit a lot of executives at companies that they don't write. But they're incredible thought leaders. And so I like that you can get their voice still out there and get their authority out. And then, of course, the audience as well. And sometimes we mix it up. We get industry leaders outside of our company, and that way we can share that audience there. And then, of course, what are you doing? You're asking questions, and we talked about that already. Get answers. Well, now you're getting the answers. And so the interview process I love because it combines all 3 of those. You get that you get that voice, you get that audience, and you're getting answers to literal questions.
Yeah. And we've had CEOs or CMOs do this before. Literally, they just don't have time to write, but it's easier for them to be interviewed, and then someone else listens and is a ghostwriter and publishes as the CEO. But yeah, that's also a great way to get some content out there.
Definitely. We have a question from, let me see, I don't want to attribute this to the wrong person, from Randy. Is there a, and I like how he put this, is there a real, quote unquote, stat that shows content consumption preferences by industry and title? Do CMOs prefer video, long form articles, etc.?
There is research. I think it's Content Marketing Institute has it. They have a resources section on their site, so contentmarketinginstitute.com. It's like research or resource section, and it literally has the 2014, 2015 benchmark B2B and B2C reports, and I think that information is in there.
I'll tell you what we do with clients, and that's that we test, and we don't do like a 1 week test. We'll do an exhaustive test. We'll test for 3 months. If we're going to do if we're going to do videos, we do half a dozen videos and then push them out there and then see how it works. And I think that's such a great question, because I do believe that we have some customers that are really great at writing primary research and exhaustive articles and white papers that have a ton of stats, and their audience just chews them up and loves them, and that's who they work with. And then their competitors have videos out there and an incredible video strategy, and their customers really prefer that and love that strategy. And so I would never tell people that copying someone else's strategy is a great idea. Even within us, like Jen does a lot of white papers and infographics and type of research. I do a lot of opinionated pieces and quick tips and things like that. And it's really because that's our writing style. That's what we enjoy doing. And I think each company kind of, you figure out the resources that you have, and then you test it and you figure out, where the direction is going that people enjoy. There's a foundation of having an email program and a video program and maybe a podcast program is really starting to hit, nowadays. So you want those foundations, but when you want to go full force on a campaign strategy, I really think you need to test it out yourself.
And on that point, there's 3 different types of learners: auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. And most people are visual learners, so most people prefer things like videos and infographics and pretty pictures. But there's also those other people, auditory, they're going to prefer, they learn from hearing, so they're going to prefer podcasts and videos as opposed to an infographic, a static infographic. And then the kinesthetic, that's more learned by doing, but they're like the content that's going to reach them are how-to guides and instructive educational material. So it really just depends on the person.
Those are great tips for all of you guys in the audience. Jen is I like to call her an expert in kind of the psychology of marketing, which I find super interesting as well. So she is full of information like that.
She's scary smart.
Thanks, Karen.
She's scary smart, and Doug's very opinionated. They make a good team.
Interesting combination.
We have another quick question that fits well into this category. It's from Amy. She said, "What's stronger, an interview posted simply as a question and answer, or an interview written as an article?" And I think that you say article.
I think you should have both. Like have the option to say, do you want to read the strict question answer, download this PDF or whatever, but I always think it's stronger to have an article.
Yeah, with an article, you're able to put some context around it, kind of before and after, and about the person. I think so. It's a lot of times in even in this webinar, Jen and I are going to get off this webinar and say, oh, we should have told them about X. Well, if we just published the notes of what we said in here, we might miss some of those snippets. So we like the article approach, and like Jen said, throwing out the actual, interview details, as a add-in is great too.
Definitely. All right, we'll move on to outsourcing content.
Yeah, so this is always a
the big no-no.
Dun dun dun. People are always afraid to outsource, and I'm gonna call them on it. It's actually 62% of companies outsource their content marketing, up from 7% in 2011. I mean, here's the bottom line. So we manage inbound marketing strategies for our clients, and part of that is outsourced as far as the content is concerned. But we touch every single piece of content before it goes out to our clients, before it goes out into the world. You're still shaping the strategy. You're still shaping what it's going to be and putting your own touch and voice on it. But, we're all busy, right? I feel like I have 100 things to do every single day, and I can't sit there and write blog posts, 40 blog posts a day. I just can't do it. So this is a great image from Curata. Personally, we've only used Elance and Odesk, but I know Kieran said she's had a good experience with Xeris, and we might get into this a little bit later, but people are always like, well, what's the cost? Honestly, for the cost of outsourcing is going to vary depending on the type of article, the type of content you need. But I'd say per piece of content, for a blog post, it's going to range anywhere from $30 to $100, $150. But higher level content pieces could be even upwards of, $2,000 for a researched, well-written white paper. So you kind of have to set your budget, see what resources you have in-house. Like if you have a great designer but you need help with research for a white paper, then you can outsource some of it. It's all the return on investment. I mean, look at it this way. Let's say you have a white paper that you publish on your site, and over a year it generates 250 inbound leads, and 3 of them close at $15,000 contracts. Was that $2,000 that you outsourced to a writer or a researcher worth it? Hell yeah, it is. You just got $45,000 in sales from a white paper from inbound marketing. So I always tell people, don't be afraid to outsource, as long as you're not. There's a difference between outsourcing and not checking and reading, and and then there's we touch every single piece of content that we produce.
Yeah, I think like five years ago, if you were going to look at content marketing and outsourcing it, there was a huge amount of negativity associated with it, because people were saying, well, it's not your voice, you're just going and getting this canned content. And sure, if you copy and paste, something that you got off of Fiverr or something, and you throw it on your site, it might just be terrible, and you're not going to engage people, you're not going to convert them. But I think where we've evolved since then is that companies are starting to figure out that sometimes they're just not great at writing content, and they're not great at writing it regularly. They're not great at really speaking to their audience, and a lot of times what we see is we have a range of writers that we work with. We have writers that do simple research; they just go and get facts, and then we have writers that are just incredible at identifying the voice of the company, researching who the audience is, and then combining the two. And they sound closer to the voice of the company than if the company wrote their own posts. And so that's the thing that you got to keep in mind. It's if you were going to get everybody has them, right? If you're a football, you go and get coaches to come in and fix things and everything else, and you go recruit players that are great for the position. I think it's the same thing here, is that this is a content war. The competitiveness is incredible out there, and now here we are years later. What we're finding is you have to write really compelling content captures, the interest of your readers in order to get search engine traffic, in order to get shared on social. And so you've got to take that content up a notch. It can't just be, baseline garbage that you're just puking out there, which was pretty common 5 years ago, and so now it's, hey, put some effort behind it, put some money behind it, and then promote it. And once it's done, and you're going to see an increase in your return on investment.
So you say it's war, but it's not war and peace.
Nice. I didn't mean to do that transition, but that's awesome.
It's a great segue. Where we go to with this is, I think a lot of times when we're, trying to get into the headspace to create content, we make it out to be just this big to do, and you start doing research, you start looking at all these different blogs, and then your original thoughts flow out of your mind. What you need to do is just kind of break it down and think of it as you're not writing a book. Act as if you're writing a chapter in a book, or even something smaller than that. Take a collection of those posts, and then you can turn it into a book later.
Yep.
But Jen, you guys have a really great example of what you've done for a client.
Yep. So on the left is the blog post that we started with, top factors to consider when selecting a data center. And then we said, hey, that would be a timeless topic for this specific client who is a data center. So we built out an infographic, how to build a data center, which is their most popular piece of content. And then we turned it into a white paper. Should you outsource your data center? Which is, they're all a little bit different, but they're all connected. So it's building on from blog to infographic to white paper. And obviously the blog and the infographic are, it's not gated content. So you don't have to download it, but leading people up to the gated white paper where you're actually willing to give your information and possibly be contacted.
Yeah, and this is a great example of just a simple topic, that these guys didn't have to get heady and thought leader-ish and sound like geniuses or scientists. It was, hey, here's how we built a data center, here's how to select a data center, and it winds up being their most highly converting, traffic. So, great example.
That's awesome. So we have just a couple minutes left, so I'm just going to kind of quickly go through this next one. Pull a Freaky Friday. I know I'm referencing a movie. Who's that actress? Lindsay Lohan. So please don't judge me based on that. But what we found is, and actually my coworker James and I do this quite a bit, because I work a lot on Wordsmith for marketing, whereas he works a lot on automated insights, sort of custom content. We'll switch places for a day. I'll write a post for him and he'll write a post for me. And it's just a really good way to get a different perspective on, what you're kind of talking about day in and day out. You get a new set of opinions in there, just a different tone to it. So we found that it works really well. And Doug, you also came up with a great, again, facts and data supporting what we're saying. Gallup says the impact of collaboration leads to 21% increase in productivity, which is awesome. That's what we all need. So I'm going to
sitting by yourself in front of a laptop, you might get stalled, but this is a great example of, hey, pair up with someone and let the creative juices run.
Again, yeah, and all of these tactics kind of weave into another one. What you just mentioned fits back into getting to that creative headspace. So a lot of these do research, answer questions, conducting interviews. A lot of these really tie in together. So with that, we've had some questions that we've taken throughout. And, given that we are 1 minute from when we said we would keep you all on this call, we don't, we want to respect your time. So we will take the questions that you've asked and be sure to answer them either on Twitter or in a follow-up email when we'll send the slides and the video recording to you all. So I hope that works. And, of course, you can continue to ask us questions through Twitter using that Content Gen hashtag, and we'll get to those. But yeah, thank you all for joining us. I just wanted to let you know there's a special offer that we have for Wordsmith for Marketing. Doug and Jen are wonderful customers of ours, and I was hoping that they could just, take a few seconds and tell you about their experience with the tool.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, the hardest part for us with analytics is where to start and what do we show our customers. And our customers are typically lost once they open up Google Analytics. And so really what Wordsmith for Marketing has done for us is just absolutely incredible. And that's that we email weekly, monthly, and quarterly reports with our clients, and we look at year-over-year figures. But we basically are able to give them Google Analytics in kind of this white paper format. And the system allows us to make edits to it, to make changes to it before we send it. But it's also a great reminder for us as an agency. We review them as well. So instead of going into Google Analytics and creating reports and fumbling through them every single month, I get these reports in my inbox. I quickly look through them. I see where there might be problems or opportunities with a client, and then I send them on to the client and tell them what our strategy is for the next month with some direction. And they've been just priceless for us from a retention standpoint with our clients, and our clients absolutely love them as well.
That's awesome. Thank you, Doug, for helping me shamelessly plug our product. But for all of you guys on the phone, go to this bit.ly link. Keep in mind that the bit.lys are case sensitive. So bit.ly /WSFM, Wordsmith for Marketing. That's how we abbreviate it. We realize it does sound like a radio station. But WSFM 50, and that'll take you to our ROI page where you can put in your information. You can also just go to the Automated Insights site or app.automatedinsights, the Wordsmith for Marketing homepage, and enter your information in there. And, just let the rep that you talk to know that you were on the webinar, and we'll be sure to get you those free reports. And if you choose to sign up, which I hope you would, we'll give you 50% off your first month.
And do it. It's absolutely fantastic. At least do the free trial. You'll be blown away.
Awesome.
You guys are the best. And thank you guys. Thank you, Jen and Doug, for joining us today. Thank you to everybody who logged on. We hope we were able to provide you with some really good information. And if not, we'll try to do better next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.